Greetings and welcome to another edition of Montpelier Connection. We are here at the State House today. The session has started. We're actually into our fourth week now, and this is a report from what's happening. Today's guest is Representative Tristan Toleno from Brattleboro. Thanks for showing up.
Thank you so much for having me. I can't believe it's already 4 weeks in.
I know. I was thinking about that, looking at the calendar today and saying, well, things are moving along.
Yeah.
Big news from last week still is the governor's budget address. Have you been hearing from people back home about?
You know, I have been hearing mostly just concern about the financing, the proposals to move some of the different components of our education system all back into one location and how that funding mechanism works. And particularly, I think, concerns about that plus the mandate that the governor proposed around 0% growth school budgets and a whole alternative process to pull that off. That seemed to be a pretty significant hotspot for people.
Yeah, I think most of the towns I know of, their budgets are done, they're off to the printers, and I think it's a pretty far stretch to expect people to open up that process again at this point in time. And I'm a little puzzled as to why the governor decided to put it out that way instead of bringing people in, having somewhat of an inclusive process, and maybe trying to do something like this next year. It's a puzzling kind of a proposal.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I was trying to sort of figure it out, and I have to say, I don't have any special insight into the governor's mind or his advisors' minds, but it seemed to me that they started with the notion that they wanted to move all of this in together, and the consequence of that is very clear that if you move all of the funding that goes along with it this year, it would be neutral. It wouldn't make any difference one or the other on tax rates or anything. But they didn't move all the money in, and so right away they're looking at, we have this great idea, we want to move all of these things in there, but it's going to raise property taxes. And when they said, well, what can we do that will make it look like we're not raising property taxes? And so this mandate to do 0% growth is really designed to avoid the reality of what their proposal actually means, which would be significant property tax increases. And in which case it's kind of a strange thing to do. Move all the money in there. You don't have to force districts that are, as you said, either done or almost done and have put months of work into this, to ask them and to ask the legislature really to act on all of these ideas within about 2 weeks, turn it around, and then force the school districts to go back and cut, all because you aren't willing to put the money in to cover the costs of moves that you want to make. I've never heard a compelling rationale for why to do it this way, and ultimately I don't see it having much traction in either the House or the Senate, because it's an ill thought through idea. It's at its worst, it's political and not serious, and if it's serious, then it's somewhat incompetent, and it's a tough place to be when you look at a new governor and you think, you want to give the governor the benefit of the doubt, and to realize that again, it's either incompetent or political, and neither one of those is particularly endearing.
No. We saw some numbers where the bottom line is it would add 7 cents to the property tax rates, which is huge.
Yeah, and I think it arguably could be even bigger than that.
Yeah. And so from that perspective, it certainly doesn't work. And I think I go back to, if the governor was serious about making some changes, he would have brought people in before this.
Yeah.
And so the politics of it rears its head, and we have to deal with that. In the meantime, we have to get on with crafting a real budget, and not one that's perhaps alternate fact based. And so there we are. That's one of the big pieces, and of course that drives all committee work here pretty much. Even policy committees know that we have to rely on a budget to implement those policies. And so you're on a different committee this year?
Yes, I am. I've been moved to the Government Operations Committee, and also I've taken on a new leadership role, and so
you're assistant whip now.
I'm the assistant majority leader, which is the whip.
Yeah.
Last year I was the assistant to the assistant majority leader, which we call the deputy assistant. So last year I was the assistant whip, and this year I'm the whip. And What that means is that, as you know, I'll be in committee a little less often than I would be otherwise, as I have to keep track of more things that are happening in other committees and communicate with members. But also in the GovOps, we call it GovOps, the GovOps committee, this last week and a half we've been dealing with an issue that's taking a lot of my time, and I've been in committee for quite a bit of testimony and conversation and debate, and by the time this broadcast is likely aired, the debate will already have happened on the House floor, but it has to do with the contested election in Washington Orange 1, which is the towns of Williamstown, Corinth, Rochester, Chelsea, Orange, and Washington, where there's a contested race. And by the Constitution in the state, it comes to us if somebody files a petition, and so we're going to address it, and there'll be.
Which is what happened in this case. It's not that the House went looking for this. It's that the candidate came to the House seeking the redress that the Constitution allows. Is that?
That's absolutely, without question, correct. And I think we have seen over the years that on occasion this happens, and the Constitution allows any House race or Senate race to be contested in this way. It rarely happens. Most of the time, people feel confident in the results, and they're able to just lick their wounds and go home if they've lost, or celebrate a victory. But we're in a period of polarization, as many people know, and in certain parts of the state, what that means is that the votes can be pretty darn close. We had one of our colleagues lose an election after a second recount. She ended up losing by 2 votes. The first recount showed them tied, and on election night she was up by 3. So she went from up by 3 to tied to ending up losing by 2. And that second recount was the critical factor, where she actually, as much as it hurt to lose, and she's now had 4 straight highly difficult and very narrow margin elections, but ultimately she was confident that the will of the voters had been correctly accounted for, and that she had in fact lost by a very narrow margin, and she has moved on. And what we're looking for here is the House is looking to do a recount. It will be conducted by the House, which is, once it comes to us, that's the way it has to go, and ultimately make sure that the voters who voted that night, that their votes are counted correctly. And whatever the outcome, we'll announce that very publicly. It will be a very public process, and ultimately that will be the person who is seated for the whole biennium here. Right now, the person who was declared the victor after the first recount is seated in the House, and he's been serving with all sort of full role as a legislator, but pending the outcome of this.
And this is not something that's never happened before. There's precedent for this,
Absolutely.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
There have been dozens of times over the years where it's been brought to the House, and there have been, in the last 30 or 40 years, 3 actual counts that happened where the House ran the count and did it ourselves as a final step. And there is no other higher authority than the Vermont Constitution, and the Constitution is pretty clear. It belongs here.
Yep. A lot of other things happening around the building. Today was Mental Health Awareness Day, so we had a number of constituents come up, and we want to welcome them when they come visit, and offer that invitation to any of you out there. If you can come up to Montpelier, we'd love to see people from back home. We'd love to take you around and show you how accessible the People's House here is, and get an up-close look at the work that we're doing on your behalf. There's some issues coming up in mental health. Of course, everyone is concerned about the budget here, and most especially in Washington. Are you hearing anything about what might be coming out of Washington? Is leadership in touch with our congressional delegation?
So yes, to the latter question, I think that the congressional delegation is very good about trying to keep us abreast of any changes that they know about. My understanding is at this point no one really knows what's happening. There's a lot of fear and anxiety, and I will say that our senior senator, Senator Leahy, made a strategic choice to move to the Appropriations Committee as his primary responsibility. I think knowing he's now the ranking Democrat on the Appropriations Committee, knowing that in this environment that so much is going to be contested, and he's put himself in a position to have about as much influence as he could possibly have as a minority member of the minority. So I feel very confident that we'll have excellent information from him. Many of his staff people are former members of this body or very connected to people in this building. And so we'll get good information flow from him, from Bernie's people for sure, and also from Congressman Welch's team. That said, it's a period of great uncertainty, and we're all trying to sort of read the tea leaves, but also do work as I'm sure you're doing in your committee. We've sort of asked the committees to be mindful of what would be our emergency response, if you will. What strategies do we have in place for handling some of the potential uncertainties that might roll out from Washington, and understanding which of our programs are vulnerable. And people should know that one of the great things that the state has done is used innovative use of Medicaid money, in particular, to cover a wide range of activities. You can probably recite many of the programs because the Human Services Committee that you're on deals with so many of them. But the fact is that what that means is that we do become much more vulnerable to changes in how Medicaid is used and the dollar amounts and the match rates. Where some of the programs that we have, it's $1 of state dollar leverages $9 of federal money, and that's a tremendous opportunity for us. And we've made really good use of it, really creative use of it, and we've been able to accomplish a lot, and without having all of it fall on Vermont taxpayers, and that's a huge potential shift, and we'll have to certainly keep our eyes on that. With respect to mental health, I think one of the other changes that happened this year is we shifted the jurisdiction of the mental health oversight role in committees, and so it's now in the healthcare committee. Am I not wrong on that?
You're right, and it's right in line with the idea to create equity between mental health and health services.
Yeah, and so the reason I asked the question is because the formal oversight is there, but so much of the work of the Human Services Committee affects programs that we run in different ways to address how people with mental health are able to participate in the economy or participate in a whole variety of services. So it does not fully leave the jurisdiction of your committee, but in terms of this larger goal and of parity, it's so important that we shift our culture to acknowledge that mental health does belong as part of a conversation about health in general, and it doesn't have, from a regulatory point of view and for payments to service providers and just the overall system of care that we've built, there is not parity with our medical system, and it's been treated as a separate and not equal system, as opposed to being fundamentally the same thing. It's fundamentally a part of our medical and human care system, and deserves parity.
You bet. We've got a ways to go there. We're in an area where one of the largest employers is the Brattleboro Retreat, which is doing some great work to serve the public and as a statewide facility, but across the state, across the nation, there continues to be great misunderstanding around mental health. The stigma around it sometimes keeps people away from that. So the more we can talk about it, the more we can help people and help achieve that parity, so people understand that physical health and mental health are so connected. We need to address them as one issue.
Absolutely.
Yeah. As we move ahead to the budget, we've got some to the session. I mean, the budget keeps looming over us. We still have big water quality issues to confront. We're looking at our health insurance system, and are there other things that you think we'll be looking at before we get done, or that you hope we are?
Within the budget, or just in general?
Just in general.
So I think water quality is certainly a really important issue. and there have been conversations. The governor has a different notion about what our commitment should be. The treasurer has looked at a way that really wouldn't affect our immediate spending. I think I tend to fall on the side of the severity of this issue and the fact that spending money now means spending less money to do the same work 5-10 years down the road, leads me to believe that we need to actually make a more substantive investment now. We don't see it, even though the Connecticut River is also on what's called a TMDL, a total maximum daily load for nitrogen, because of the impact that the river, changes in the river's chemistry have been having on Long Island Sound.
Sure.
It's mostly invisible to us, but in northern Vermont on Lake Champlain, in particular, although not exclusively, the effects of phosphorus on the lake are really pretty tremendous. And in the St. Albans area, places that cater to tourism and other things are finding that they can't swim in the water for periods of the summer. It's smelly and toxic and really quite troublesome. And this is a long-term responsibility that we have to turn this around. And so any investment that we can make now is absolutely critical.
Yeah, it's no different than the water protectors that are out in the Dakotas trying to stop the pipeline there. Raising the specter of how important our water is to us. And we have those concerns right here in Vermont. They're real, and we need to deal with them now.
Yep, absolutely. So another issue that is kind of a different, I'll take a different tack here, and you can tell me if, is marijuana policy and where we're going there. And I think that there's, I'm not as completely concurrent on where I think the strategy is going as I should be, given all this focus on this contested election last week. But I personally was very disappointed with where the body left last year, and I felt that we had an opportunity to address what is black market now and make it a reasonably well-regulated and clearly legal market, and we could have thoughtfully managed some of the major issues around prevention, edibles, and some of that's homegrown, and the fact that we didn't address it. One of the concerns that I've had, and I definitely said this in a conversation in the Speaker's office last year, I said that they're giving great economic development opportunities to Western Massachusetts, and for us in the southeastern corner of the state, we know that Massachusetts is now legalized through referendum in November. We knew that was likely to happen. And what it means is that Massachusetts has gotten a jump start on creating something. And the fact is that a significant chunk of the tourism traffic from the New York metropolitan area and Boston goes through Massachusetts. And if you're coming up here for a ski weekend, you're going to be making your pit stop in Massachusetts. So it won't just affect the people who might have gotten into the marijuana business. It will also affect the gas stations and the convenience stores, because people, we're going to stop there and then they're going to go to the mountain. And so we'll get, to the extent that there might be harms associated with a legal marijuana system, we'll probably get a lot of the consumption harms, and we won't get any of the benefits to the local economy of a well-regulated market. And that's very disappointing to me, but we hopefully can see if we can make some progress this year in some areas, and maybe decriminalization will be a place that we start to more fully decriminalize the ability to grow your own. So it's not just possession of somebody else's, but also grow your own, and that might help break a little bit of the power of the illegal dealers in the system. And so that's a starting point. It's not where I would like to be, but it's a starting point.
And I'm hearing there may be a House bill in judiciary.
Yeah, so I think judiciary is working on something. There's several other people that have put ideas in bill request form to have the committee look at them. And so I think they're gonna take a look at it, and they're gonna try to find a way, at the very least, to handle the decriminalization issue in a much more robust way.
Mm-hmm. Wow. appreciate you taking the time, Tristan.
Absolutely.
And your especially busy time right now between committee and leadership, so thanks for helping bring our work back
Well,
home.
and thank you for roping me in. It's always, actually, I love doing this. I think you and I could probably talk all day.
Yeah.
So,
I hope
thank
it's
you.
helpful
And
for people back home.
yeah, absolutely. And same there. I hope people know that that we do love to hear from you. And
Yep.
I will say that we get a lot of email, and it's hard often when you're in committee or running around to take phone calls. But for the people who are comfortable texting, it is absolutely. I'm wide open to being texted because I can do that discreetly and without noise on, and of course you can call and email me. But also if you are comfortable texting and just identify yourself, so I have some context of who you are. My cell phone is 802-579-5511, and I welcome feedback from constituents, however you want to do it, but certainly texting is a great way.
And our other contact information is on the legislative website, which is leg.state.vt.us, and they'll probably put that graphic up for us because the people back at BCTV have just been awesome in helping us bring our message and the work we're doing in Montpelier back to you. So we want to thank them at BCTV and thank you again for checking in with us. Until next time, bye-bye now.
Thanks.